to Time to Unpack Talk Show. I am your host, Tiffany Singleton, and today I am very, very excited. We have a special guest, Mr. Haleem Washington, here with us all the way from Vegas, and he will be sharing some interesting insights with us, as well as some of his testimony. Welcome to the show, Jamar.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Glad to have you here. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Tell us, who is Jamar Washington?
Well, I don't know if everybody knows that guy anymore. Everybody knows J Haleem. However, I fight between it. Am I the same person, or are they two different people? Jamar is a young man who grew up in Newark, New Jersey, born and raised during the crack era in Newark, New Jersey, one of the roughest cities in the country. Became a good basketball player by day and student by night, a juvenile delinquent, and stumbled my way into college and kept doing the same things. And I became a felon. And, I just was searching, graduated school with honors, but didn't know what I was going to do because I couldn't get a job because I was a felon. And so stumbled through entrepreneurship, starting businesses, trying to figure it out. And then finally, came back to South Carolina where I went to college and, said, hey, I'm going to try this photography thing. And I think that's when I became J Haleem at that time, where I had to create my alter ego, the person who made this decision that, hey, entrepreneurship was going to be for me. And usually when we make those decisions and we play tough guys, life hits you in the mouth. And so here I am thinking I'm gonna do this be this big businessman, but I had to take this $8 an hour job because I had a kid coming. I had my second child coming at the time, and I had to be a man, so I had to take a job. And again, as a felon, you couldn't get no job, no great job. So I got an $8 an hour job while I was building my photography business, but also building my alter ego, which is J Haleem, and just building a brand for myself. So that's who I am. That's who Jamar was, and now the beginning of J Haleem.
Wow. What a testimony. So let me ask you, so was that like a humbling experience to have to take the $8 per hour job? And how important is humility in pursuing dreams?
Oh yes, definitely it was humbling. Because again, I did a whole lot more in my life up until that point. I'm 31 years old. I've had some successful business opportunities and things that I've been able to do. I just knew I deserved better, but at the same time, I had to be a man. I had to take care of my family, and so some money was better than no money. And I just understood if I made something, I'll be able to do what I need to do with the rest. And so, yes, it was definitely humbling. But I tell people all the time, you can go ahead and make something. You can't sit back and make anything. I mean, not make anything. So for
That's good.
me, I was good with that. I knew I wasn't going to stay there, so I was cool with that.
That's good. That's good. So now we go from $8 an hour to six figure man. How does that feel?
It feels amazing. Again, I tell everybody, I try to be upfront. It didn't happen overnight.
That's good.
That $8 piece in 2013 didn't turn into six figures until 2017. That was my first year making that as a photographer and a business owner from with that situation. But those 4 years were rough. Those years were rough. Making $3,000 as a photographer and working an $8 an hour job to in and out in 2017 with six figures, and with no job. It was a lot that happened in between that. It was a lot of looking at me crazy because I only made $8 an hour. I remember a quick small story. I remember working with a lady, doing some photography work and some film work with her. And then she had to come back into my hotel like 2 weeks later. She paid me like a little over $1,000. She walked into my hotel and I'm mopping the floor. She looked like I duped her. Like, why did I give him that money? Because if she knew that, she either wouldn't have used me or she wouldn't have gave me the money she gave me, no matter
Wow.
how good my work was. So you get those type of things that happen. What you do says a lot about you. They don't, and nobody want to know your story. They're just looking at where you are and what you do right now. So yeah, it was tough going through that situation.
Wow. So it sounds like you had a vision. Vision is critical, right? So what was
Well,
that
yeah, definitely.
turning point for you to even desire or want to go after more?
Well, I went to a TD Jakes conference in 2014, and it was just amazing. It was when his book was coming out, Instinct, and he was on stage talking about how you know that you're bigger than what you're doing right now. And he
Mm,
brought a lion out of state on the stage. He brought a real lion on the stage, but it was caged. And he said, this lion's been living in the cage all his life. He said, so, but we keep him in the cage because we're afraid that if we let him out, his instinct is going to kick in and he's going to really be a lion. And some of you guys are in self-inflicted cages and you're holding yourself back. And I cried like a big baby right then and
woo,
there. And I had people around me told me, he's talking to you. And
wow.
that was the day someone told me that I was going to write a book. I didn't believe it at that time. But when I went back, things was different. A couple months later, I went and got my own office space. A few months after that, I left that job. And that's when I Won't Starve was born, because people knew my story and knew that I was struggling. And they're like, why would you just getting on your feet? I wasn't making $8 at that time. By that time, I was making about $13, $14. But I just knew that I can do better. And I just kept telling people I won't starve. I created the hashtag, which we now own, and just kept talking about it. So every time I got a big gig and I shot it, I would put it on social media, hashtag I won't starve. It was my way to let everybody know I'm going to be all right. My family's going to be all right. I've done enough. I know I'm better than working, for someone else, especially at those wages.
Wow. What an incredible story and commendable at that, because most people would have given up.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay, so I won't starve. So how did you come up with, now obviously I know what that kind of means, but how did you come up with that hashtag?
Well, for me, something I saw years ago, it's back in like 2006 or seven. I saw Russell Simmons doing an interview with BET, and he said, "What is the advice you would give to entrepreneurs?" And his advice was saying, "You won't starve." He just said, "You won't starve. If you got a talent, you got gifts, you'll be just fine. You won't have to ever worry about starving or not being able to feed yourself." And I felt that same thing, but I had to internalize it, because at that time I was at the end of my rope. I didn't have any more family to call for money. I didn't have anybody else that
Mm.
was going to believe in me. My wife didn't know what to do. Nobody knew anything. So I had to internalize that for myself. And so me saying I won't starve was like, I'm going to show you with the gifts and talents that I have and the platform that I've created for myself will be just fine. And I
Woo.
kept putting that out there every single time. Every time I got a win, I put it out
Wow.
there.
Yes. Woo. I'm trying to hold it together. I want to shout right there. Woo. Okay. So let's talk about the mindset shift, because sound like you also had a major mindset shift. How important is that to people that are aspiring to start businesses?
That's everything. Mindset shift is the first key to starting a business, if you ask me, because at the end of the day, you can't look at it the same way as somebody that's going to work. It's a level of comfortability going to your job. You know what your job is, you know what your check is going to look like. You know when your vacation is coming. You have a lot of things that's certain for the time for the duration that you have that job. There's no certainties in entrepreneurship. You can't count on anything besides the work that you put in and the systems and processes that you put in place.
That's right.
Creating a business is like like creating a child. You spoon feed it and all that, but after a while, that child grows up and has a mind of its own. And you just pray that you put enough in that child that will resemble that it's been raised properly by the proper parent. And a lot of people don't know that. And so when you going into this business space, you don't have the right mindset and you're not seeing the money that you have, or you have to miss the next 3 years taking vacations and you can't go out into the club with everybody all the time.
Woo.
It don't look sweet when you made $3,000 for the for this whole year, and everybody that's working is balling. They saying you still doing that little business, you know, and
Wow.
then that little business end up at the 5 years. It's like, oh, okay, they're borrowing money from you, but you got to see that, and you got to be okay with that when you don't see it the first year, the second year, the third year. You got to be okay with that, and that takes mindset.
Yeah. And that's true, because a lot of times in business, people look for overnight success, but you have to put the work in.
Yeah, yeah. No
Goodness.
overnight successes.
None. Okay. What would you say were your biggest lessons learned?
One of my biggest lessons is lifestyle shifting too, because you got to live it. You can't just be in business and be doing what you're doing and you don't live it. You got to live it. When I told you I got my office space, is because that summer I had a shoot with a law firm, and once I shot with that law firm, I immediately said, "This is what I want." I don't want to do weddings. I don't want to roll over on the ground for models. I don't want to do none of that. I want to do this type of work. So I got an office right in the heart of Columbia, right downtown Gervais Street, right where everybody can see me in the heart, right across the street from the off the law school, because I want to work with lawyers. And I didn't for a year. I didn't have a lawyer in my office, But the next year it started coming. Then the next year after that, now I worked with some of the biggest law firms in the Southeast. But that's what I said I wanted to do, and I lived it. I put my whole lifestyle. I moved down the street. I lived downtown Columbia. Still own a place downtown Columbia. I did everything in my lifestyle to get these type of clients that I wanted. And that's what you got to have, that type of commitment. I forecast that in my speaking and everything I did lifestyle wise. So that was one of my biggest lessons. And then just being patient, as a kid, I've been doing business since I left college, but I was never patient. I did want the overnight success. I did want that. Again, I was a juvenile delinquent. So being in that space, I was hustling. Everything was fast. So I wanted to be fast. But that patience thing, I understand that 10 times better now. And I started learning it over the years as a business owner. So those are my two biggest lessons.
Okay. And I see now you've had the opportunity to work with some pretty big clients, Nike, the NFL, the WNBA. Man, that must be
Mhm.
amazing just being able to see the fruits of your labor. What was that like when you got your first big contract?
Oh man, it was funny. My first one actually was with via the law, working with law firms for Amtrak.
Mm.
Amtrak had a big accident, some deaths and things like that. And I shot 17 law firms, 17 different cases
Ooh.
via Amtrak. And then from there, I started working with, like, say, the Children Foundation. And then I worked with Aja Wilson, who was with in the WNBA. And so I did a bunch of things with her, which opened up me that scenario. Then we did a Nike shoot with which opened that situation up. So it was just different things. The NFL, Super Bowl. I've done the Super Bowl a couple of times, so that was kind of cool. So it was just different things that one thing opened up to the next.
Wow. That's awesome. And so I have one because I know your schedule's real busy, but I have one more question for you. What advice would you give um, individuals that think that their past mistakes determine their destiny?
Oh man, you just that's false. I would tell them that's false. Long as you got breath in your body, you can change the narrative. I spent 18 years of my life at Felon before I got pardoned, and I kept my head down. I kept my head down. I worked for the military. I worked for the city, the county, the state, federal government, and I kept my head down because I know I would have never gotten that job if I applied for it. But because I was a contractor, because I'm an entrepreneur, they gave me the job. But I never wanted nobody to ask me about my background, not one time. So I kept my mouth shut, and that was probably the worst thing I could have done personally. I mean, it was good for business, but I feel so much more free now that I speak freely about what
Wow.
happened with me because I was a kid. I
Wow.
didn't do. I've never been in trouble since. I've never been in trouble since I've been in college, and I've been out of college for a long time. But I'm not gonna let that define me. I walk into business meetings with my I Won't Starve garb on, and don't worry about whether or not how you see me. This is me. This is something that I created as a felon. Like I said, I just got pardoned last June, so I did all these things with having a scarlet F on my chest. And so you can still do anything. It's nothing going to stop you from doing it unless you stop yourself. A lot of our brothers and sisters stop themselves. Create your own situation, create your own narrative, and you have to believe it. You have to believe it. And it's a lot of people that's going through what you're going through, so they understand your story. And so you don't have to be the guru of anything. You just telling your part, your side of the story, and you just need to be in the conversation. When you think about a guru might be dealing with millions of people, but you don't need millions of people to make you a millionaire. So at the end of the day, if you can get 10, you can get 10,000 of them. You good. You'll be successful in that space.
Wow. That's awesome. So it led me to think about one other thing. It was just key what you just hit on that you do not change your identity for business. That who
Yeah.
is for you is for you. and opportunities that are for you, and you don't have to change who you are and what you stand for. So I thought that was really important when you just pointed that out.
It definitely, again, as I said, I went from calling myself my government to J Haleem, abbreviating it. And that's even worse because now, you got I have an Arab name. I didn't have a beard, and now here I am with I won't stop. And so, but you know what? You got to deal with it
That's
because
right.
I didn't ask you for anything. I provide a service, so either you want it or you don't. And again, like I said, I work with some of the biggest law firms in
Wow.
the Southeast. I've worked with some of the biggest brands, and nobody questioned that, but they would have questioned that if I filled out a job application.
Yeah.
And so that tells you something. That says something. Only person that checked my background was Save the Children, but they was checking my background because we were dealing with kids.
Right.
But outside of that, again, the military never checked my background. These law firms never checked my background. None of these places checked my background. But if I'd applied for a job, they would have checked my background and probably would have denied me that opportunity. So that says a lot about the system that we're working under. And I wasn't going to be denied at all. I wasn't going to be denied.
Wow. Well, listen, we appreciate you taking time to come on the show and give us a sneak peek of who J Haleem is. And so I know you have some other products. So can you tell us a little bit about your products? I know people now want to know more about your services and tell them how they can connect with you.
Number one is my books. My first baby, I Won't Starve. Again, name and titled after my mantra. Just talking about my story again, growing up in Newark, New Jersey, growing up in a household with a bunch of my family members being strung out on drugs, and being the first grandchild. I didn't know anything else, so we wasn't listening to the rap music that told you to use drugs, that told you to sell it, and so that was what we did, not knowing, not having the examples of how to do it the right way. But I got through it. As we got to learn different things, I did different things. So I learned better, I did better, and so I'm happy to be able to get through that. So somebody going through that story, that type of situation, this is a book for you.
Wow.
You won't starve, because we have responsibility to, once you get to a certain point in life, to give back. And so for the people who need to learn entrepreneurship the way that I went through it, because I didn't have $10,000 in the bank, $50,000, and I had nobody to loan me no money, but grassroots entrepreneurship, coming up, getting to a space where you're successful. This is the book for you. You Won't Starve as a training manual, and we focus on Gen Zers, millennials, and baby boomers. And the key word in this book is opportunity, because we had to teach you about the opportunity in entrepreneurship. That's not just doing it, just because, but it's true opportunity. And lastly, morning motivation. This book was written during the pandemic, which we're still living in. But I wrote this book because the narrative was just wrong. People was telling, throw away 2020. A lot of people got their breakthrough in 2020, you know? And so we just wanted the people to know that this wasn't the first crisis, and it's sure enough not going to be the last crisis. So how do you stay motivated consistently through no matter what crisis that you're in? And we wanted to do that. So we took my morning motivations that I do still to this day every morning, and we put some of that in this book so that people can actually get some motivation through whatever crisis they're going through, no matter if you lost a family member, because people are still losing family members, no matter if it's through COVID or whatever. People lost their job that didn't have anything to do with COVID. It's just crisis always coming to somebody every day. And so we need you to stay consistently motivated. So that's why we created this book here. And my social media is I am J Haleem on all platforms. No matter which platform you look at, is I am J Haleem. Look at Google me, J Haleem. I'll pop right up. www.jhaleem.com. IWon'tStarve.com. Of course, you can Google that as well. And we have a nonprofit, I Won't Starve Academy, which is iwon'tstarveacademy.org. So check us out in any one of those. And as I said, always say, I'll fly anywhere to talk, speak, and train you. That's what we do right now. That's what got me here to Vegas, doing a lot of speaking and training and working on the West Coast. And so I said, it looks a lot prettier over here. So I traveled and moved the whole business over here.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing some insight and your testimony with us.
No
And
problem.
to our wonderful audience, you just received a sneak peek of Mr. J Haleem. Please hire him for any motivational speaking or whatever training needs you may have. You will not be disappointed. And once again, thank you for tuning in. See you soon.